Good morning, Facebook. Hey, this is Veterans Impact Show. We're going to start our broadcast in just a few seconds. Cedric and Michelle are here with me back from Hawaii. This is going to be an exciting program talking about what they did with marriage counseling and marriage management in Hawaii. So this is Jim Blythe, Veterans Impact Show. We go live in just 5 seconds. Stay with us and share us. Welcome to the Veterans Impact Show, where our motto is Charlie Mike. Continue the mission. I'm your host, Jim Blythe, U.S. Navy Vietnam veteran and certified senior advisor. Join me as we feature veterans who continue the mission of leadership and commitment in our communities after serving our great nation. Why, you never know who you're going to meet or where we're going to go. So welcome aboard. What a great day, and at least it stopped raining here in Dallas for a change. I was thinking about I was going to have to put pontoons on my SUV because it's getting kind of bad. But we're going to be doing great. And I got to tell you, I've got a really exceptional program for you today. For those of you who don't remember, because he's been gone for a couple of weeks, the great Cedric and Michelle White, two of our dearest friends. I got to tell you, I was so blessed. I met him months ago at the Hope Center, and I was like, this is a guy I want to work with because he is an amazing minister, amazing marriage counselor. He's written a tremendous book, The 4 T's, Steps to Successful Relationship. I highly recommend it. You can go to his website, Healing Thine Heart. Is that correct, Cedric?
That's it, healingthinehearts.org. Yes, sir.
Yeah, and I got to tell you, whether you're thinking about marriage, you're in a marriage, it doesn't hurt to learn everything you can about relationships because it's important. And what they do is incredible. And you guys, also, I want to tell you, my beautiful wife, Diane, is sitting here next to me. She's manning the computer. She is available if you want to ask a question that she can relay it to us.
Oh, Joe's on.
And hey, Joe, welcome from Jacksonville. So, Cedric, tell us about what you did and where you went, because I thought that was really exciting. And a lot of people don't know about the Cohen Clinic that took you there. So start off and tell us.
Well, thank you. First of all, good to see you, Jim. Good to see you, Diane. Wonderful to be back in the saddle. My sidekick here, she's right here with me. We had a great opportunity because of what we do as marriage counselors and working with first responders and veterans. Well, we partner with Marriage Management, who partners with the Cohen Clinic. The Cohen Clinic has offices all over U.S., continental, and abroad. And so they asked us to come in and to do some work with couples, both with the National Guard and with other arms of the military, yes, their spouses and so forth and so on. So we had the opportunity to go to Oahu, Hawaii, and you'd be surprised how many people offered to just carry our luggage. They're just so
we did.
Yeah, we volunteered.
Anyway, yeah.
We even had questions about how do you guys get to go and work in places like that? And we say, well, we work hard and then God blesses us and we can work and play hard. So that's the way that came about.
Yeah. Nathaniel, show him that picture there, the Arizona Memorial. So you were in Pearl Harbor.
Yes.
You got to go to the Arizona Memorial.
Yes.
Oh, that is an amazing thing. And Cedric, I remember, 5 times we docked across from that thing, and to listen to colors in the morning and listen to taps in the evening was always an inspiring situation. Hawaii is absolutely breathtaking, and the weather was great while you were there.
It was. They told us that they were getting more rain than they normally get, but it would always rain a portion of the day and then come out and be beautiful. And then even more so, we caught more pictures of rainbows just all over. I mean, some would look like we'd be coming over a hill, and some would look like they're just sitting literally just right there. It was on the ground. It was beautiful. So we probably
look at that.
Yeah.
we experienced also a couple of times we saw a double rainbow.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Ooh.
which was, I mean, how often do you get to see that? But being in Hawaii, we were able to see it multiple times. So it's a beautiful place, and it's definitely God
Yeah.
did his best work in Hawaii.
Yeah, they called it paradise. And we started to see, because much like you, Jim, I'd gone to Hawaii before. I moored across from the Arizona, the memorial, never got to go and see it the whole time. I went to Hawaii twice, never got to go and see it while I was there. So this particular time was first of all, going to see the memorial was so
Impactful.
it was impactful emotionally.
Yeah.
And the presentation that they gave, it was brief prior to getting on the boat and sailing across. It was brief, but the last thing he said was to understand that you're not just going to a memorial, you're not just going to a museum, but you're actually going to a burial site.
Mm-hmm.
People still enclosed inside that ship, and that was their final burial place.
Mm-hmm.
While we were there, we were honored, and we didn't even know. As a matter of fact, when we tried to go, we wanted to go Monday, we wanted to go Tuesday, and we couldn't get it to work. Finally, we got tickets on that Wednesday that we were there. And that was the day that they celebrated the very last sailor who lived and survived the attack. But he had died that April the 1st, and we were there on the April the 15th. And they were memorializing him that day. So that was an even more special day. And I'm not a really emotional person, but the whole time I was there, from the time we left the presentation to where we went across to the actual memorial, I had a lump in my throat, because when you think about the ultimate sacrifice, we just celebrated Memorial Day the other day. When you think about the ultimate sacrifice that was paid by so many people there, and they have the memorials for other ships that went down, but the Arizona was the biggest one. And I learned so much. I thought I knew. We learned so much about how the ship was made, how the layout, a lot of things that happened. So it was a very, very, not just educational, very insightful, but very emotional trip while we were there.
Yeah, and when we were there in the Navy, we were always so busy working because we were transiting to Vietnam and the Pacific. You were transiting other places, and a lot of people don't realize that Hawaii is the base of the 7th Fleet, and Hawaii is also got the Army is there, Marine Corps is there.
Yes,
they do a tremendous amount of training. Without a doubt, Honolulu is a Navy town.
Yes, it is.
Without a doubt. But it's also a pretty wonderful place. And as you were standing on the beach, that's God gave you a rainbow. No bad deal.
Did.
Yeah.
Several.
So, Cedric, as you were getting into your first counseling, that you came over, Cohen Clinic had you doing this. You were over there for 2 weeks. You were telling me about the National Guard and how they were different and how that was kind of an amazing experience. So would you and Michelle kind of elaborate on what you were doing with the National Guard and tell me a story about that?
Well, theirs was where, okay, let me back up. The first training that we did was for the National Guard, and they were having a spouse and a loved ones day, if you would. They called it The Ocean is Calling, and it was called a multicultural and family day, because there's a lot of Asian influence in Hawaii. And so they had Polynesian, they had Japanese, they had other cultures coming in, but it was first about a spousal appreciation. So before they did anything that day, they had us to come in and do a half day presentation on understanding, our standard messages, understanding boots on and boots off, understanding the fact that although I am military, my wife, though she's there with me, or my mate, not just necessarily my wife, but my mate who is serving with me, they're affected by it. But how I operate in one area or when I'm in on duty, when I'm on the base, when I'm deployed. That's the word I was trying to find. When I'm deployed, I have to operate a bit differently if I'm going to relate with my spouse and my children and people in the neighborhood. If it's not a military community, then I need to understand that I have to have a different mindset. And quite often, you'd be surprised how just those 4 words, boots on, boots off, makes lights come on for people because they've never really considered the level of how they're trying to run their entire life from a military perspective. And it's different once you take those boots off. And so it's huge to know that.
When you go home at night, you're still in the military.
Yes.
When you go home at night, I'm no longer a mortgage banker. I'm no longer a business development guy.
Right.
I am a husband. I am a father. In the military, you go home, you're still in the military. You are a husband, you are a father, but you've got to really go through something like what you're doing to help people to understand how to make those daily transitions and how to work in a partnership. I think that was so amazing about when we went through the marriage counseling with you. So let's talk more about that, because you mentioned several things that had to do with the National Guard, which I thought was very intriguing. I'd like to hear more about that.
Well, what they brought us in, we did our scheduled training, and it was very, very well received. And then we went down, and we were able to be there. We have some side off conversations, because it's one thing to have a group session. It's another thing to where, okay, even in the group session, things come to mind, right? But we don't want to talk about our specifics in a group setting, right? So, people will corner us, and we'll have a little what we call corner counseling sessions, which are often very helpful, because sometimes it doesn't necessitate, session after session. Sometimes one brief answer, right?
Mm-hmm.
The Bible even talks about a kind word turns away wrath. Mm-hmm. Sometimes just hearing it differently from somebody else could be something that your mate has said 1,000,000 times, but hearing it from somebody else that you're not emotionally tied to or in conflict with will make a difference. And so we hear that a lot. And so they had the band, they had the food, different areas of food, and it was just a very good time had by all. So it was a full day. We got half of it, and we were constantly told how just in those few hours, how much it helped them. As I think we even have a video from a young lady who shared her testimony.
Let's play that video. Let's play that. Nathaniel, thank you. By the way,
do
we have volume? Can you guys hear it? Because we can't.
Oh, yeah.
So I wonder if they can hear it online.
We'll be 20 years this year, so that's 19 years longer than I expected. So we're good. We're good.
All right.
But I liked everything you taught. It was a lot of things we had to learn on our own, and not everyone's able to do that. So being people who can provide it to people, that's even better.
Well, thank you so much, and we hope we will help. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
that was great. One of the things, Cedric, that I was so impressed when Diane and I went through is Michelle. Michelle brings a different perspective. She not only brings the ladies' perspective, but she brings a perspective of having been a military wife.
Mm-hmm.
And what she adds to it is just amazing. You guys do this together. So I would imagine that there are a lot of ladies who would really relate to Michelle and want to talk to Michelle and open up about things that maybe they don't want to open up to a guy for. So I was very impressed with how you guys did that.
Mm-hmm. Very cooperative both ways.
It was very interesting, even with that, the girl who was interviewing, I thought it was very, because most of these people that were there were volunteers for the National Guard on different capacities and programs that they offer. But they brought their significant others, their spouses, into this training and they didn't really know how it was going to go because they really knew nothing about us. But Alyssa with the Cohen Clinic really knew the program that we offer and was just really validated and we just that one testimony alone of multiple testimonies, because when Cedric and I, as you said, when we were facilitating, we share our challenges and we're very transparent in our facilitation. And I think it's important for us to be open and naked and really share. And I think because Cedric is such a dynamic facilitator, but when I kind of throw it in and just kind of like neutralize it and say, you still have a space, you still have a voice, and we have to speak our truth. We really truly have to speak our truth in love so that we can really overcome a lot of the challenges that we have in communicating with our spouse.
Yeah, even in our counseling, people appreciate that for probably 75 to 80% of the time, we counsel couples together. So they don't feel like they're going to be overwhelmed from a male perspective. They don't feel like the guy doesn't feel like he's overwhelmed by a female, where you're taking her side or I'm taking his side. No, we're both there. So it's very balanced from both sides of the conversation.
It's very, very powerful because we experienced it. I want to kind of make a statement though. What if a guy is single or a gal is single and maybe they're contemplating marriage and all? One of the things I got out of it, which will blow you away, I think, is a different look at things, because you talk about communication. You talk about these 4 T's: trust, truth, talk, and time. These are important in just your walk of life, in your business, in all of the things you do, in your community, in your family relations. So you go to such a depth, you go to such a broad that encourages people to think. Didn't you find that, Diane?
Oh, yeah. It makes you really dig deep and think through dynamics in your relationship and what needs to change and what's working. It's not all bad. I mean, it's a lot of it is, hey, we're doing this already.
Well,
thank God.
Yeah. My personal opinion is, whether you're married or not, the training and getting the book is a thought-provoking thing that will change your life. And it is biblically oriented. It is very important. I think that we're going to go into these things more when we come back. Let me tell you, I am so thrilled to have Cedric and Michelle back, and I know what they did in Hawaii for our military is really great. I also want to say thank you, Nathaniel, for engineering this, and thank you to Fairway, my company, for supporting this. This is the Veterans Impact Show. Please join us. Please subscribe. We're brought to you by DBTV Network. We're brought to you by the Fairway Independent Mortgage, and we're now doing all kinds of help for Cedric and Michelle because it's great. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the Veterans Impact Show, and thanks to our sponsors, Fairway Independent Mortgage and Lone Star Wealth Strategies. Now, let's continue this great conversation. Hey, this is Jim Blythe and Diane Blythe. We're here with our co-hosts and partners, Michelle and Cedric White, ministers, marriage counselors, great human beings, Navy veteran. Michelle, your former husband was in Air Force.
Right.
So and Diane, her father was Army Air Corps. My family was all Navy. I got to tell you, we look at things differently, don't we, guys?
Yes, we do.
I would love to hear some stories that some of the participants relayed to you. I think you said one thing about a family came in, or a lady talked to you about she didn't think she'd make it past the first year. And this really helped. And they've been married quite a while.
Let me tell you, Jim, we see every aspect. Before the break, you were talking about, we do have some singles who come through by themselves. And we tell them it is as relevant for you as it is for those who are in relationships, right?
Mm-hmm.
As a matter of fact, the more I can learn about being ready for a relationship, the better I'll be when I get into one, right? I'll have ideas about what I want. I'll have ideas about boundaries. Quite often what we find when it comes to relationships is that people just, they go with the physicality, which, hey, nothing wrong with finding hopefully you do find your mate attractive, but hopefully you're attracted to more than the physicality. You're attracted to more than just the fact that we had fun when we went to a movie or a dinner, right? It's deeper than that, especially if you're talking about continuing and going on and maybe even doing life with an individual. That's where we find most of the issues. So when people come through the class, and we have young and old, we have, I think the oldest couple that was in one of the classes were in their late 70s.
Yeah.
And we commended them because it's so wonderful that even at this age, a lot of people is like, hey,
this is what it is.
To hell with it. I am who I am, you are who you are. And if we don't like each other, we'll just deal with each other until one of us is out of here, right? And we always say your marriage, your relationship was made for more than that. It's not just tolerating one another. My heart goes out when we deal with couples who just tolerate each other. They're there because of what we call the mechanics of the relationship. Hey, we have a house, we have jobs, we have cars, we have kids, so we're there. But when we hear people who are wrestling with things like forgiveness, and when we talk about that area of forgiveness, we had one lady who you can normally tell when things start to get real close to home or real close to a situation that couples are dealing with. They start to get fidgety. They start to ask questions or actually start to sort of refute what's being shared. And so this one lady, she'd been through some things personally as well as some things in the relationship. And when we started talking about forgiveness being for you, the forgiver, even more than it is for the person that you're forgiving, she had a hard time dealing with that concept. So we had to explain to her and take a moment. And this is one of those times where it's like, okay, let's go off script, because we're dealing with somebody who has a situation, and we can't turn a training session into a counseling session, but we can address some things that maybe we come back later. And so we talk to us like, understand, there's an old saying that not forgiving somebody or holding on to unforgiveness is like drinking poison and hoping that it kills the other person. And that's not the way it works, right? You're harming yourself. And there's a fact, there's a physiological fact that unforgiveness affects you physically. Your issues get into your tissues and it will affect you. It will literally cause you to get sick. And so we spend a lot of time trying to help people to take that weight off of them, the weight of unforgiveness, the weight of distrust and not being able to trust one another. How do we help you to build so that you can start to solidify and set a firm foundation in your relationship? And one, how do you have real successful love if you don't have successful trust? You can have love without trust. We ask that question, and most people say, no, you can't. Like, yes, you can. We know a lot of couples who do not trust each other. Love you like crazy, but I don't trust you beyond the front door. That is fixed in a relationship.
Without a doubt. I have some very dear friends that we're going to introduce you to. I think we gave you a copy of their book called Forgiving Forward, Bruce and Tony Hebel. And they've been carrying this on for quite a while. We met them when I was in seminary, and their son introduced me to them.
Yes.
That concept about basically healing yourself, drinking the poison, thinking the other person, is so true. That is such a tremendous analogy. I would think, too, that in a military context where you're dealing with diversity. You're dealing with blended families. In both, you guys are blended family.
Yes.
You're dealing with racial diversity, which is fantastic. I love it. But that creates a whole new set of dynamics, as well as family relationships, things of that nature, So when you're going through these and building trust, and that way you can get to the truth. That's one of the things I like about your book. I think one of the most important pillars of this whole thing is you got to trust somebody.
Exactly.
And it's a process, when Cedric, when God downloaded this message to Cedric, it really truly, a lot of times, especially in women, we believe the fairy tale. And the fairy tale is you're gonna marry your knight in shining armor and live happily ever after. But until you really truly know yourself, it's that's the most important thing. And a part of it, spending time with yourself and knowing yourself.
And I think, boy, Michelle, you are so right on. And I think when you're in the dating process, it's not really the truth in many cases. You're always putting your best foot forward. You're always you want to be a guy. We want to be the white knight,
Right.
And instead of the horse, we want to have the really neat vehicle. And ladies, you always want to sparkle and shine. It's kind of funny that when we do get married, a lot of things change. Shouldn't, but they do. All right, we're going to take a break. We're going to come right back after these words from all of our sponsors. Again, thank you to Fairway. Thank you to DBTV. We're here for you. This is Veterans Impact Show. Stay with us. Subscribe. Welcome back to the Veterans Impact Show. And thanks to our sponsors, Fairway Independent Mortgage and Lone Star Wealth Strategies. Now, let's continue this great conversation. If you're just now tuning in, Cedric and Michelle White, this time are my guests. Normally, they're also my co-hosts, but they had a great 2-week trip to Hawaii, thanks to the Cohen Clinic, to do a lot of marriage counseling training while they were in Hawaii. No bad deal, man. We did offer to carry your luggage. And what's so important in that, there you go. Yeah. Let's show some more of these photographs. It's important because I think one of the most destructive things in the military is family relationships when they go south.
Yes.
Cedric, you and I saw it when we were on active duty.
Yes. Jim, I'll never forget being underway. We were on a Westpac on a six-month cruise, and I'll never forget. I was coming from my workstation, coming across the mess decks, and I saw the cook. Now the cook was a big guy. This guy was like 6'3". I mean, he makes me look small. He was a big guy.
That's hard to do.
Yeah. And he was sitting at the table and he was crying out. You could tell this man was hurt. And I was young at that time. I didn't have sense enough and I wasn't doing counseling, but you walk past and it was embarrassingly, it was embarrassing to me for him. Later on, we found out that his wife had sent him, what we call a Dear John letter.
Oh, yeah.
Not only that, but she was taking up with his buddy there, and later that image later on in life came back to me, how the military can affect some things. And if things, first of all, if we didn't start off right, that's one thing, right? If things weren't right before I deploy for who knows how long, right? Things remain not right, then who knows what the level of explosion or implosion will be for a relationship. And so when I think back to that, it's like, man, how there were not resources like there are today. And so Michelle and I, we really pride ourselves in availing ourselves as much as we can, as well as when we're there. This is not just surface level things that we're talking about. No, let's go below the surface. That's a lot of the problem that people have today. They're surface dwellers. And you've seen the picture of the iceberg, right? There's more below the surface. You can't even see down that far. And most people aren't willing to even go that deep in themselves, let alone with somebody else in a relationship. And so it was especially premarital. We love to get couples in a premarital state, right? Because we can deal with some of those things that we have to deal with people who have been married 10, 20, 30 years that we have to deal with if they had even thought about it, planned for it, discussed it, communicated before they got married, maybe it wouldn't be such a terrible issue that they're dealing with now that they have children, bills, and time involved in the relationship.
I have a story I'd like to tell. There was a shipmate of mine who did the same job, same rate that I had. And we came back to the States. He'd been working in the detachment there in the Philippines while I was on the carrier. And so when we got back, we were working side by side, and I got to know him pretty well. And his wife was just one of the cutest women you've ever seen, like a Daisy May. And they were real young. They actually got married after boot camp, after his boot camp. And they were from a small town in the South. And they were just the most delightful couple to be around. So much fun. It was like little Abner and Daisy May.
Yeah.
You know, happy, wonderful, super people, small town, Georgia. We came back, and I will never, never, never forget when the carrier docked in Alameda coming back from our cruise and my deployment. And I looked down, and there she was. And she was wearing a pink suit with a little pink hat suit, not her typical blue jeans and Daisy May type attire. And instead of the ponytails, her hair was coiffured, and I could see it at a distance. And Don, he goes running down, and she's kind of standoffish. She had changed. And you got to remember, we were all in our 19s, 20s. I was 21 years old when we went in. That is probably one of the greatest periods of change in someone's life.
Yes.
And that young woman or young lady that went from literally being a teenage child to being a lady. And she'd been working in a professional office, and somebody had mentored her, and she changed.
Yes.
The change was so dramatic, and they couldn't stay together. It was, you know, and it was tragic because that sort of thing happens a lot when you're gone from 6 to 9 months.
It does. It does.
And
especially at such formative years in your life.
One of the things that was problematic, Jim, back when you and I were in, was because the level of communication that they have today did not exist then. Right? If I write a letter from the ship, it may get back to my loved ones at home 2, maybe 3, maybe even a month later. And now that's a month going that way. Now I'm waiting 2, 3, maybe 2 or 3 weeks, maybe a month later for a response. Right. And a lot of things change. If I'm needing an answer, you're needing an answer. I can remember one time being in the Indian Ocean that we were able to call from the ship, and then we were calling from the radioman's equipment. So I'm calling home, and I'm calling my mom. I'll never forget it. And you'd have to say, "Hi, Mom," over, and then the person on that side, because they'd have to hit the switch back and forth. And my mom never got it. My mom never got it. There was no communication. And I use that example because communication in a relationship is like what our blood is in our bodies. If blood stops flowing to an area of your body, if your blood is sick, if your blood is weak, it affects the entire body. That's the exact same thing if communication is weak, if communication is non-existent. If communication is always combative and there's never mutual communication, it affects your relationship negatively. And we tell people, if you can get communication and prioritization together in your relationship, you can overcome anything. However, most people never master communication with their mate because it takes constant work.
One of the other things is while we are deployed, there's a tremendous amount of stress on the family, on the spouse.
Yes.
Because they don't know if we're going to come home.
Right.
And when we were going to Vietnam, we saw the film footage of the Forstall fire. I was on the Oriskany right after it burned. You were seeing the nightly news of what was going on in Vietnam.
Right.
We were seeing, you know, we lost pilots. I got to tell you, the stress for the family was so high because they didn't know.
Yes.
They didn't know. They couldn't talk to us every day. They couldn't. Right. And I guess today, now with internet, maybe they can have overcome that. But that is a huge stress for the spouse who's home. On the other side, we're training. We're at the ship.
Yeah.
When you were at sea and in the ship and doing what you did as a gunner's mate, you don't think about it.
No.
It's just part of, here's where we are, and you're surrounded by your compatriots. You're surrounded. You're all a team. You're all more than a family.
Exactly.
Okay. That is a mentality that the spouse doesn't have. She doesn't have that level of support. There is support. And I've known many commanding officers' wives who organized support, did things for the wives, but for the most part, it's not the same. No. And that creates problems right there.
Oh, most definitely, Jim. I mean, you got to think about it. When we're deployed, we are focused. We have a job to do. It's people want, man, how can you stay on that ship that long? Well, that's a little city. There's a little city in and of itself, and it works. But as you become used to that routine, your family at home, they're becoming used to their routine, right? So there's two different worlds operating simultaneously, and then all of a sudden you come back from deployment. Now let's instantly smash those two worlds back together and expect them to operate, right? Now the military does a little bit better in preparing you for returning home, but it's still not to the level that it probably could or should be, because it even more so when a person has lived 15, 20, 25 years, maybe more in a military mindset. Now I retired and I can still go to the base and whatnot, but my life is no longer surrounded by, guarded by, run by the military. Now there's two different worlds coming together. You've gotten used to me being gone most of the time or being engaged militarily. Now, boom, it shuts off. And things happen a lot. We see a lot of problems that come. As a matter, we have a class coming up, this coming Friday, that's PTSD to PTG. And a lot of people don't know they've never heard of PTG. Everybody has heard of PTS and PTSD. Very few people are mindful of what PTG is. And so when you're talking about that, it's like going from post-traumatic stress or post-traumatic stress disorder to post-traumatic growth. What does that mean? That means I'm going to use that thing, whatever traumatic thing happened, and that could be military or non-military. How can I use that and take it and use that power, use that situation, use that negative influence on my life to turn it into something that's positive? How can I use it? How can I overcome it? How can I teach others? Michelle and I do what we do, coming from a PTSD to a PTG perspective. Right. Growth, the things we suffered, now we use to help people literally all over the world.
I want to say thank you to Chai for putting up there. Mastering the art of communication is key, without a doubt. And if you can't communicate, that's a real problem.
That's it.
I think I have been down the road more than once, and unfortunately, I don't think we ever really mastered the art of communication. I married some great people. They just weren't great for me, or I wasn't great for them. And everybody gets hurt. So that's where I go back to. When I met Diane, we were talking and I said, well, if you want to be friends, I'd love to be friends. You're an exceptional person. But if you want to go deeper and go more, then I want to do marriage counseling.
And I got up and we were on the phone. I got up and danced around my room. I was just like, what?
That's wonderful.
Yes.
Yeah. Wonderful. And we really focused and she said, who would you go see? And I told her, and she looked at, or she told me, he's a friend of mine. I know him well. And he and his wife are tremendous. I think it's so important. But Cedric, let's take it out of, I mean, the family is the anchor. The family is the most important organization in our life. And I call it an organization because it really is.
Right.
And it's the relationship.
Yes.
But Cedric, if you haven't got a solid basis at home, what's going to happen to you when you go to work? What's going to happen to you when you're in communication with other people? If you don't know how to communicate with your spouse, you may not be able to know how to communicate with other people, or you think you're communicating and it's going south. I think this has got a lot deeper meaning than just the marriage. I think it's much more about preparing us as human beings to really function to the level that we want to. That's my opinion.
Jim, you're spot on. Here's the thing, right? It's one thing for Michelle and I to have a relationship and to be able to communicate. And so if we never go outside, if we never go to a job, we never go to a church, we never engage with school, we never engage with our community, then we're okay. But for most people, that's not the case. We're engaging outside. We understand that there's relationships. As much as I love my wife, and we're together almost 24 hours a day because we work and do everything else together. But there's still other relationships outside of us. And we have to understand that those 4 basic T's do not go away: time, talk, truth, and trust. That doesn't go away. And that's even myself. I need to spend time even doing some self-talk, even understanding the truth. What is the truth about me? What are my triggers? A lot of people don't even understand why they act the way because they haven't taken the time to understand the truth about themselves. And here's another thing, Jim, right alongside of what you're talking about. Can I trust myself in certain situations? Do I know the truth enough about myself that, you know what, I probably shouldn't go out drinking with the guys because I always get in trouble one way or another. That's the truth. So I need to trust myself not to do that. What things do I know that's truthful about me that will keep me from being in a relationship that isn't positive for me? To thine own self be true. We say it all the time. I need to be honest with myself. So outside of just a marriage, outside of the family, I need to work on my ability to communicate and to relate to other people in other situations. I have to. Otherwise, I'm going to be problematic. And we deal with people, anger issues, deal with people who have going through situations where they've got charges and stuff like that. Why? Because they cannot relate. They can't communicate.
And sometimes they don't even recognize, and I just want to add to this, a lot of times they don't even recognize their dysfunction because their truth is how they were raised. They don't see that they have a dysfunction. So you have to bring
everybody else.
It's everybody else. So this is my truth. So if they can't understand they think that their truth is right.
And I say it all the time. That statement, my truth, is a problem for me.
Yeah.
My truth does not necessarily mean the truth.
Right.
And I think one of the things too that I would highly recommend is people who have been through a terrible divorce, a loss of a loved one as well.
Yes.
Learning to communicate again, learning to have relationships, learning to be truthful and open, and also know when to kind of back up and pay attention to what's going on. Don't go drinking with the buddies if you're going to get in trouble. Right. Don't do a lot of other things because it can be harmful. So when we come back, I want to finish up and talk about the importance of marriage counseling, the importance of communication counseling, and the importance of being able to take care of yourself and your spouse, because that goes hand in hand. We'll be right back after these words from all of our partners. You're watching the Veterans Impact Show. We're here for you. You be for us and subscribe. Thank you, and be aboard. Stay aboard. Welcome back to the Veterans Impact Show. And thanks to our sponsors, Fairway Independent Mortgage and Lone Star Wealth Strategies. Now, let's continue this great conversation. I want to take a second not only to say thank you so much to Cedric and Michelle. Thank you, Cedric, for being my new partner. Well, not new, but also all you bring to the table with this. But I also need to say very, very much thank you to Dave Bruner and DBTV Network for putting us on Amazon Fire and Roku and Smart TV. And they tell us we're going to be able to do some more announcements. What a great opportunity to go around the world with this program. We want to be able to help not only veterans, but our active duty military. And I want to say a special thank you to my company, Fairway Independent Mortgage. My NMLS number is 311548, and our corporate one is 2289. When I'm counseling seniors with the financial literacy or the financial things that I do in providing mortgage lending, I got to tell you now, I'm referring them to Cedric and Michelle for how to get on board. How do you go through the trust, the truth, the talk, and take the time to know? Because you've got to be on the same page. And so many of the disasters that I see in people in retirement are a direct result of the fact that they didn't do these things. And I got to tell you, you want to know more, just give me a call. Jim Blythe at 214-502-4600. And Cedric, what's your contact number that people can reach you?
972-833-4344.
We are here to help you as a veteran, as a senior. We're here to stand with you. And we've also, I've learned a whole lot about integrative health. We've got things that we can show you that are not just married, not just financial, not just literacy, not just communication. We're here to serve, and we've got a whole bunch of people that stand with us. So wrapping this up, what would you say was the most important thing that happened in your trip to Hawaii?
Jim, I would say one of the most important things was the fact that we learned, first of all, Michelle and I love collaboration, knowing that we can't do it all, right? We can't be everywhere. We love that. So working with marriage management, who got us in touch with the Cohen Clinic, and finding out all of the resources that the Cohen Clinic provide, right? They brought us in. We're a resource. They're like, hey, this is a good resource. We're gonna bring these guys in. But for those who have been discharged, honorably, other than honorable, medical, even dishonorable discharges, the Cohen Clinic has resources for you. If you serve, I think their motto is like, if you serve the weak or something like that, then they are there for you. We have people, for whatever reason, that lost out on their ability to have veteran, benefits. Well, Cohen Clinic is saying, we care about you. If you went and tried to serve our country, we're going to try to serve you. Because you serve, we serve.
And I love it. And I just want to add to that, Jim, as well. And the spouses.
Yes.
And the spouses and the family members. And the one important thing that was messaging that we saw and observed was that this is totally confidential. It will not affect any benefits. We're not communicating with the military. And that gave them such a sense of comfort. And that's what I saw as well.
Right.
I think that is great, because if you are healing the family, you are healing that active duty military, you are healing that veteran. And I got to tell you, our veterans are the most important resource this nation has. Without a doubt, veterans have led the way in many, many ways. A lot of people, we talk about the VA. A lot of people, I hear it all the time, negative things said about the VA. In some cases true, many cases not true. But here's the thing, let's all work together. And that comes with talk, that comes with truth, and that comes with communication. And I don't know about you, man, but they did the PACT Act. Michael Krause, who is the director of benefits, state of Texas, literally took me down a hall and got me signed up. I got some benefits from that I didn't even dream of. And there are opportunities. And I have talked to so many veterans. I've been sitting there with a veteran and his family, and I'm saying, hey, listen, I'm getting hoarse because I'm having to yell. You can't hear. Why don't you go to the VA and get hearing aids? And they go,
Right.
I can't do that. Hey, there's ways to get your benefits.
That's right.
There are accredited reps across this nation to help you with the paperwork. You can get the medical benefits. I am not an accredited rep, but I have communication across this nation, and I have been able to help people get aid and attendance. Not me personally, but help them focus. There are opportunities that can literally save your life and save a family.
Amen.
Veteran service officers.
And the veteran service officers, thank you, Diane, and the Cohen Clinic and the resources they've got. They're here in Dallas. They're in a number. They're across the nation, and it's free.
Yes,
it's free. It's no cost. And here's one of the other things with the VA: they have telemedicine. Well, I want to talk with a doctor, but I live in East Nowhere,
right?
And it's an hour and a half to 2 hours, huh?
I say that's me.
Yeah. Well, no, you're not that far away, but boy, there are some, and now they've got telemedicine.
Yeah.
What if you're disabled and you can't, driving to get to the VA clinic or driving is not a real good alternative. With telemedicine, they can help you.
That's it.
Our VA today is not the VA it was 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Without a doubt. And so we want to say, avail yourself of the services. Hey guys, we like to end with a prayer.
Yes.
Cedric, why don't you lead us in prayer as we say thank you?
We'd love to. We'd love to. So, Father God, we thank you for this time. I thank you for Jim and Diane and their hearts to impact the veteran nation, the military nation, those who serve, those who have served. Lord, we ask that you be with us in all things, go with us in all things, protect us. Thank you for those who have given the ultimate sacrifice. Lord, we ask as we see everything happening, Lord, be with us. Make this nation one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. In Jesus' name we pray.
Amen. Okay. Hey, we're going to be back next week, and I'm lining up a great guy who's a first responder who's into health and fitness, and we're going to be talking about what can be done for first responders. So join us next week. This is